nominations discussion. Welcome to the Northeast State Presidential Search Q&A session. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the structure of these sessions. We will begin by allowing the presidential candidate a few moments to give a brief introduction. Following the introduction, I will ask a question to start the process, and then we'll begin asking questions received from the email submissions, and then take a question from the live audience, so going back and forth. I'll continue to rotate in this manner, alternating from one email and then one from the audience. Those who are in attendance online may submit a question via the chat function, and those will be posted as well. And I will tell you, we have quite a number of people online today, so we're really pleased at the interest we're seeing. The Q&A session is scheduled for 1 hour. Our candidate will be asked to keep responses between 3 to 5 minutes to ensure we're able to ask as many questions as possible within our time frame. As a reminder, if you'd like to be recognized to ask a question, please indicate so by raising your hand, and a microphone will be brought to you. Questions asked should be for the intention of gaining a better understanding as to the fit and ability of each candidate to be the next president at Northeast State. We thank you in advance for your respect and professionalism. With that, I'm proud to introduce Dr. Eric Heiser. Dr. Heiser comes to us from Central Ohio Technical College in Newark, Ohio, where he serves as provost. Dr. Heiser earned a PhD in Education and Human Resource Studies and Higher Education Leadership from Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, a Master of Arts degree in Adult and Post-Secondary Education, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, both from the University of Wyoming and Laramie, Wyoming, and an Associate of Science degree in Business Administration from Central Wyoming College at Riverton, Wyoming. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Eric Heiser.
Well, good afternoon. Great to see everyone here, and then for those online, welcome as well. As Lottie stated, I am Eric Heiser. Happy to be here with you today. In my third year as the provost at Central Ohio Technical and Community College, just outside of Columbus, where I am over both academic and student affairs. Came there from Salt Lake City. I was a dean, started as an associate dean, and then the dean for the better part of 5.5 years over one of the schools within the college, and started my career on the academic side of the house as a business training and then faculty member within the business division at Central Wyoming College, the same college that I graduated from. So yes, the question I will get out of the way right away. I am not from Tennessee. I was actually the first one in my family born outside of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. My dad had grown tired of the Northeast winters and saw that Wyoming had 300 days of sunshine a year and thought that might be a pretty good thing. So that's what put us out to Wyoming. And since that point, again, I've kind of moved around and now find ourselves just outside of Columbus, Ohio. Happy to be here. Very much appreciate the Southern hospitality I've experienced all day long, and just looking forward to chatting with you.
Thank you, Dr. Heiser. Let's see. Please tell us specifically why you are interested in Northeast State and why you think you would be the right candidate for this job.
So we've gotten the external part out of the way. I would definitely be considered that candidate. I'll start specifically with why Northeast, and then I think what I can bring to the table. So I am currently searching for what will be my first presidency. I'm an Aspen Presidential Fellow. Believe very strongly that in order to affect any type of transformational change, you've got to be willing to commit to a place for 8 to 10 years. Also very important to me from a familial perspective that I'm not moving every couple of years with the 2 daughters that my wife and I have. So as I'm looking at places that could be potential fits, there's a couple of things that we have on our list. How is and what is the reputation, in as much as I can ascertain from online sleuthing and or asking friends that are in the Tennessee system, how is the reputation of the community college? How are they perceived among their peers from around the state and potentially even around the region? The second is, from, again, as much as you can glean online, because that's a lot of times when you're making the decision to apply, what does the financial health of the college appear to be? Is the college in a place where they're going to be able to do some great things because they've got flexibility? Or is it in a place where, that's going to be a concern and something that needs to be thought about? Certainly with 2 young daughters, the school districts come into play and the type of education that they'll be getting. As I said, my hope, certainly no one ever holds the cards in advance to know how things are going to turn out, but certainly my hope and part of my education through being a senior leader and being a part of the Aspen Presidential Fellowship is that I'm at a place for a good period of time to enable to enact transformational change to the betterment of our community and our students. And so it's not certainly looking to get to a place and leave in a couple of years. That's not something I aspire to do. And those were, like I said, in terms of places that we looked at, there are certain areas that we will consider as a family, and there are others that we are not, that we just wouldn't. From what I had heard from my peers and the research that I had done about Northeast, I think this is clearly a gem of an institution and going, I think, in a good direction and can continue to go further as we emerge out of this pandemic and move into the next normal. Specifically in terms of, I think, what I bring to the table, I've been involved throughout my career as an administrator in some of the more innovative changes to higher ed, specifically led the rollout of what is to this day still the largest competency-based education transition from a non-credit technical program into competency-based education. We rolled out 20 programs in 3 years at Salt Lake. We were nationally recognized for doing so. To give you the quick 20-second elevator pitch about what competency-based is, often referred to as CBE, it literally just takes the time out of the constant of learning and makes learning the constant and time the variable. So what that means is that students are able to progress at rates that work for them, as opposed to how we dictate to them when and where and how they're going to move. I've talked to a lot of groups throughout the day today, and one of the lines I left them with was the idea that we as an institution are going to be able to dictate to our students where, when, and how coming out of the pandemic is a fallacy. Students now know that they can do things they never thought they could do because of what happened to them during COVID, both educationally and not. And colleges that meet students where they are, truly meet students where they are, and don't just talk about it with regard to flexible enrollment, flexible modalities, and offering different options for them to engage with the institution, I think are the ones that are going to be able to win the day. And I think those that don't are going to continue to see enrollment declines and potentially even cease to exist in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you, Dr. Heiser. The first question from online: please discuss your experience with shared governance at the community college level and how you see faculty and staff's role in that model.
Yeah, so I think really from a shared governance perspective, there's a couple of ways that I've seen that have worked well and maybe those that haven't. I'll focus on the good. I think using COVID as an example, we had established a group of stakeholders from throughout the college. So we're talking faculty, staff. We don't have, it's a little bit different in terms of our staff association because we share a campus with Ohio State University. Some of our folks work with both. So they work literally both for Ohio State and for COTC. So that type of dynamic is a little different when it comes to staff association. But we have groups of our stakeholders that are around the table and are part of the decision-making process. I think the most crucial part to any kind of shared governance is first and foremost that faculty and staff are being heard. And then secondly, as they're around the table being heard and part of that decision-making process, that they feel valued. That doesn't mean that everything that you want is going to happen in the way that you want it to happen. But what it does mean, especially from a building trust and loyalty standpoint, is that people feel that they are heard and they are valued and they are respected. That lends itself well to a culture that is looking out first and foremost for their students and knows that whenever big decisions arise, their trust and they know that that institution is going to go the right direction, the direction that they need to go, as opposed to some things that I've seen in my past where the decisions are made in a vacuum and they're communicated out. Maybe they aren't, maybe they are, but you never really know or understand how those communications were given or came about. So for me as a leader, I have strived to be someone who is as open and transparent as possible. I share with my staff weekly. I have a weekly email update that goes out to 85% of the college and fill them in on the goings on. Because if they're not on that committee, they're not necessarily hearing all of the things that are going on. I think, again, what that does, though, is it shows your faculty and staff that they are valued and that they are a part of the process. The key is it can't just be token participation. They've got to feel like they're a part of that process. And I think that's where things can sometimes get sideways. So I feel like I've navigated that very well throughout my career. I do it in Ohio right now with a faculty union and a staff association that is not, as I alluded to, not unionized and sometimes works for two different sides of the house. And did the same in Salt Lake as well. But the key really is, are the stakeholders from all of the affected groups around the table, and are they truly a part of the decision-making process? If those two things are there, the likelihood that those at the institution feel valued and respected, even if the decisions don't go their way all the time, the likelihood is high that people are going to feel valued and respected.
Thank you. Are there questions from the audience? Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. We have one over here. Thank you.
Hey, I am a historian, and in Tennessee and arguably with the rest of the nation, there's a lot of criticism of faculty and teaching as a profession and all of that. I think it would be really helpful from the faculty side if we felt that we were a part of this, and so that's really speaking to me. And I was wondering what ideas you have had that you have not implemented yet in that regard, as far as making communications and knowing faculty is defended.
Sure. So faculty, that's where I started. So I certainly understand. I still teach to this day, by the way. That's been very important to me as a provost. It was very important to me as a dean. In the presidency, obviously, and in the provost role, it's exclusively online. So that's a different environment because schedules are such that there's just no way you can anticipate being at a place at a set time. So with that said, I think it's very important to keep one foot inside the classroom. That's how I've done that. That's how I've managed to, I think sometimes for my faculty, it's even just catharsis, because I get some of the excuses that they get and would have a hard time believing otherwise that someone actually tried to pass off that excuse. So I think that it has helped me to maintain that it isn't just, the kind of X's and O's of leadership, that it is about maintaining a presence for the very thing that we are charged to do, and that is educating our population. From a communication standpoint, like I said, I try to be and strive to be a very open and collaborative communicator. There's not, in as much as it's possible, certainly there are confidentiality issues, but I think if you asked my staff, I don't carry secrets. I'm not a secretive person. I want people to know what's going on and hope that we're making the right decisions based on the knowledge that we have at the time. I think COVID's a great example. I can remember standing on a stage very similar to this, telling my faculty and staff, just make the least worst decision Like, this is not great, the situation that we're going into. But know that you're going to be supported. Know that I'm going to back you up. And know that at the end of the day, we were trying to do right by our students, given all the things that were placed on us. And that's really the way that I approach my relationship with both faculty and staff. I think every single one of us could likely make more money in the private sector, and we're here for a reason, because we believe the mission of the community college, and we believe that so deeply that we're willing to forego monetary things and salaries that could be much higher, because we want to be a part of something bigger. We want to be a part of a place where we get to say that we change the lives of our students for the better on a daily basis. For me, that's good enough. I'm perfectly okay with that. So, and I think, again, the faculty and staff largely, I've never run into a person that says, yeah, I'm just here until I get something better. Like, the mission draws you in.
Thank you. The next online question: where do you see Northeast State's trajectory over the next 5 years as it pertains to the importance of both technical and transfer education?
So, full disclosure, my magic 8 ball has been broken for some time. So I'm going to give you what I think my best guess of having never set foot on the campus until yesterday. I would say, both generally and specifically, and I've told quite a few groups this today, and I alluded to a little bit earlier about colleges that are going to thrive and those that are not. The more that we are willing to question the status quo, the more that we are willing to ask the question, what's best for our students, the more that we are willing to think outside the box and do things differently than we ever have before, without reverting or attempting to revert back to pre-pandemic times, I think that's going to get us to a much better place. We have to be okay with not knowing all the answers before we make a decision. Frankly, that's just the way, that's the situation that we're in right now. But I think those colleges that are willing to take some strategic risk, again, for the betterment of their students, and there's many different ways that can happen. It could be, changing up and adding to the modalities and the way in which and the times in which you offer those types of things. It could be different types of learning environments. It could be us going to our workforce providers and saying, hey, can you teach students at your workplace? Because I can give your people credit for that, and we can get them on the path towards a degree. And yeah, that's different than anything we've ever done before, but we're going to check it out. So the more willing we are to question the norms, I think the better off that we'll be 3, 5, 10 years down the road. I think those that are unwilling to think that way or to take strategic risks are going to find themselves continuing to bleed enrollments. Because like I said, this is a newly empowered student. This is a student that 2 years ago probably did not have the confidence and the faith in themselves to be able to do hard things or do things differently than they had ever done them in their traditional academic background. They are now very emboldened and very willing to ask for things to be different because of what they've gone through the last couple of years. And those that kind of lean in, those institutions that lean in and truly meet those students where they are, that is contagious. I think students will relate to that, and they will tell their friends and they will tell their family, hey, Northeast really cares about me. My faculty really cares about me. My advisor, my success coach really cares about me. That goes a long way as we're trying to figure out with them what the future of higher education is going to look like.
Thank you. Is there another question from the audience? I think I saw a hand here.
I have a concern that only a third of our students graduate within 3 years. And also our enrollment's down. And I know that's across the state. What can you do to lead us to do better? Because we do care.
So the first thing I would tell you, and again, I would need to look over the numbers But I can guarantee you what I've seen thus far is, and again, I'll state my bias with regards to competency-based and time not equaling learning. It's not a great way for us, and it's not a great measuring stick to use to say our students aren't completing in 3 years if the vast majority of our students are part-time. So I would turn that around to you and say, what supports are we offering our part-time students to get them to a place where they can be successful? I was asked the question earlier today, what was the last conversation you had with a student? I didn't relate the very last one. I relate the one that jarred me, and that was winter commencement. Talking to a student that took 6 years to get his associate's degree. He didn't think there was anything wrong with that. He liked the fact that he was able to work and get his degree and progress at a rate that worked for him. I think the key is truly understanding who our students are. And the only way that you do that is to dig into the data and see what's my percentage of full-time versus part-time, what's my retention status, what is the percentage of students that I'm retaining from semester to semester. To me, that's the key. Are we bleeding a lot of students from semester to semester, or are they staying engaged with us, but because of life circumstances, they can't? There's no way for them to engage with us full time. I think it would be great if all of our students could finish their programs in 2 years, but that's likely not our audience. Our audience needs us to be as flexible as possible with them and be willing to be okay with them not graduating in 3 years, so long as they're progressing. Now, certainly there are the federal standards and the measurements and things like that we talk about. But at the end of the day, I've talked about this morning quite a bit and throughout the day, if our North Star, that thing that we always look to, is student success, then we're going to do everything we can to remove the hurdles along the way to get them to that point. It could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, it could be 5 years. But if we've kept them on that pathway, and we've done the things that we need to do from a student success and teaching standpoint, then I think that's successful. I don't think there's a place where a community college can boast that they finish even more than 50% of their students at 2 years. It's just a very, very different dynamic, and our students come to us for different reasons. That's very, very different than a university, very different than full-time studies. I think certainly we need to be able to adjust and keep our students motivated and engaged, but I'm going to be a lot more interested in what my retention rate looks like, as opposed to, well, it took these students 4 years to graduate. Because if I can keep them engaged and retain them, the likelihood of them getting to success that's going to be higher.
Thank you. From your experiences, how do you feel Northeast State should best determine its ratio of online to on-ground course moving forward?
We just talked about this, the smile on my face from the last session we talked about. So there's a couple of different things going on here. I was very happy to hear that there's a similar situation in Northeast Tennessee as there is to Central Ohio. And that is, we send out surveys all day, and we have, to our students about, hey, what way do you want to engage with us? What kind of classes? And they are overwhelmingly, I want to be back on campus. And then the first sections to fill up are online. So again, I'm gonna skirt the answer here, but not because I'm trying to avoid it. I'm just telling you, I don't believe there's a perfect formula of you must have X% online, X% on ground. What I would tell you is this: we need to do, generally, community colleges, and it sounds like also specific to Northeast, we need to do a better job of letting our students know what they're getting into when they take an online course. We need to get away from this thought that online learning is somehow easier, that it is somehow inferior to or less than the classroom. Good online education, quality designed online education, is harder than it is in the classroom, because there's an amount of self-directed learning that's going on that doesn't have to occur on ground. But I think where we've failed in the message there is the idea that, well, we're just going to offer and the students will go where they go. Okay, that certainly is one way to think about it. But if we're not asking them the questions, why are you enrolling online? I guarantee you, if you ask that question to prospective students, you'd hear a wide array of answers, probably all rotating around the idea of flexibility. So then what that would tell me, and I hope would tell all of us, is we need to look at ways that we can be more flexible with our students with regard to when and how they are engaging with us, without forcing a student who isn't ready, or even because of their learning style, online learning is not right for, and just letting them enroll and watching them flail. None of us wants to see any of our students fail. But if we're not having those conversations up front about the expectations within an online course and what it looks like and the time that you need to allocate for it, then yeah, our online enrollments are likely going to be higher on the front end, and our retention and DFW rates are going to be higher on the back end, because students aren't going to be successful. They're going to get themselves into situations where they have to drop out or they take an F. And likely that reflects poorly on us on the back end as well, because they're not going to be real happy that they spent all that time and didn't pass the course. So I think it's about having candid conversations. I think there are also things that we can do better, again, generally with regard to online programming, to make it more equal from a standpoint of student success and resource. How we're assigning and using tutoring. Are we embedding tutors in certain courses? Do we have some sort of hybrid element to our online courses so that there's more connection? All of those things can help. But at the end of the day, we do have to be able to say, hey, I don't think this is right for you. Let's figure out a way for you to engage in the way that's most likely to make you successful. But if we're not asking the question on the front end, we're not going to get an answer on the back end.
Thank you. Are there other questions in the audience? There's one here, one up front. Nikki's got a question.
In your view, what role should grants and external funding play in supporting the institutional mission? And if you could describe any specific experience you have that informs that perspective.
So I share this morning as well. I think for far too long, especially from a fundraising standpoint, we have sat on the sidelines, just willing to give our four-year friends and partners everything with regard to foundation and fundraising. Like, that's not our lane. I would tell you, for me as a president, that's absolutely my lane, and it's a lane I choose and will intend to embark on. We have incredible stories to tell. Those funders love that story. They love the story of a student walking across the stage to be the first person in their family to graduate from anywhere, let alone college, from anywhere. They love the story of the student who came back to college from a dead-end job and moved from a job to career because of the education they received at the community college. That happens here all the time. And we have not done a good enough job of explaining that to our donors and the foundations that are out there. They are willing to fund us. We just have to be willing to tell our story. From a grants perspective, grants allow you, when I talked earlier about the willingness to take strategic risk, you still are going to have to take risks, strategic risks, I believe, in order to continue to move the needle in the right direction. What a grant can allow you to do, if you do it properly, is it gives your CFO maybe a little less heartburn, because now there's some buffer that if this doesn't work out, and again, we can be okay with saying this didn't work out and not continually do it for the next 20 years just because we had a grant 15 years ago that gave us that opportunity. But it buys us the space to not put into peril the financial future of the college. And so I think grants can be an incredibly powerful tool for us to experiment, for us to take strategic risks. And by the way, especially from the federal standpoint, those are the type of applications that get approved. The feds are looking for colleges that are willing to take those risks in exchange for that money to see if it'll work. Because what they're really looking for is replicable practice. If what you did worked, then we want to be able to roll this out across the country. And so I think it really is kind of the best of both worlds. It buys us the ability to innovate and experiment without the CFO having sleepless nights, and the president, by the way, of holy cow, if this doesn't work out, the institution's going down.
Thank you. Another online question. Will you discuss ideas for positioning Northeast State to recruit and train a talented and diverse workforce? And can you provide an example of something you've done in the past?
So recruit and retain a talented workforce,
A talented and diverse
workforce. Okay. So I would say, well, I'll start with the back end first, the example. So in my history, I've worked with some of the Fortune 500, Fortune 100, Fortune 20 corporations, most notably Boeing and currently Intel. And those are great in terms of scale, and meaning the number of employees that they need. When I was in Utah, we worked with Boeing to implement a pathways program for A&P techs. So I know my dean of business is going to know that term from the aircraft mechanic standpoint and the aircraft assembly standpoint. And so that's great. You know, we were able to do that. But the real focus that they came to us for was, and this is Intel specifically within Ohio, they said, we need you to do that. And oh, by the way, we have certain metrics that need to be hit with regard to women in STEM, with our diversity pool, and we need you to do that as well. We turn around and say, okay, that's good. That's our audience, especially from an underserved standpoint. If we can engage with students, and we need to engage with students earlier on in their educational pathways, I'm talking like middle school, to encourage them and prove to them that college is for them, that they are college material, and that they will be successful. That kind of starts that pathway and that pipeline. It starts to fill it up. It takes time, right? But there's a lot of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders right now, especially from our students of color, lower socioeconomic status, that don't believe that college is for them right now. They don't see that as a pathway. No one in their family's ever been to college. So we have to start on that side. And that's precisely where we started in Utah and what we're starting to do with Intel in Ohio. So that's one side of that pipeline. The other would be those that are out there with the some college, no degree. So they've taken college courses, they've taken college coursework, but they never finished. There's a sizable piece of the population. It is also statistically outsized in terms of our students of color. So there are a lot more of those students that have stopped out and need and want to re-engage, but they're not sure how. And so the way that we're doing it, especially with Intel, is being very open and upfront about what the opportunities look like. That's the easy part. Jobs are great, salary's great. Some of these jobs are paying over $100,000 a year for an associate's degree. But what on the other side, the harder part is to figure out why they left us in the first place. And so that really involves kind of digging into not only the data, because the numbers can tell you something, but the qualitative side. Why did you leave? It doesn't always have to be a negative on the institution. In fact, many times it won't be. It'll be that life happened. But we have to give them and show them that there is a place for them here to re-engage and finish on that pathway. And that's really, like we talked about all day today, the lowest birth rate since the 1930s is where we're at right now as a country. So that spigot of traditional age students is not quite at a drip yet, but it is surely not flowing like it has for the past 40 years. And that's not going to fix itself for at least the next 20 years. So that population is declining. So who are we going to engage that's already out there that is likely to, or hopefully would, re-engage with us? Some college, no degree, or the adult learner that's never been to college. And I think, again, we talk about a lot about seeing themselves, especially from a diversity standpoint, that students see themselves in their faculty and see themselves in the staff. I think that's a key as well. And these huge companies are, I mean, it's no joke. They make no bones about the fact that they want to see diverse classes graduating so that they can hire the most diverse talent that's available to them within the market. But I think it's definitely not a one size fits all. You've got to figure out what makes the most sense for the audience that you're trying to serve, and then be very deliberate about why that audience isn't with you right now and what you need to do to get them engaged with you in the future.
Thank you. I'd like to encourage those online. If you'd like to submit more questions, please do so. Are there other questions in the audience? We have one over here.
Hello.
Hello.
I think this is a more specific version of probably something you've been asked already today. So you've mentioned a few times that you were the outsider. So what do you say to those people who believe that the Northeast State president needs to have pre-existing ties with the community and the workforce? Thank you.
I would say your presidential pools are probably going to shrink if that's a prerequisite. So here's the thing. As someone who's been in higher ed and community colleges specifically for almost 20 years, the problems that we face are not dissimilar, and it doesn't matter what state you're in. The problems are declining enrollment, lower or in some cases no funding from the state entity, and a population of students that is and has no longer sees a relevancy to what it is that we're doing. So yes, I'm the outsider. I am not from Tennessee, but it doesn't mean that the problems that you all face aren't problems that I can help solve. They are very similar. I think, again, at the end of the day, the president is the external face of the college. It is that person that is the chief cheerleader, and not only rah-rahing on the inside, but rah-rahing on the outside to say, you know what, this is a darn good place. And these are the reasons why you need to send your kids here, or this is the reason why you need to come and engage with us and be a part of Northeast. That doesn't take someone who has lived in a state for any amount of time. Would I have to get to know the community? Absolutely. I shared this morning with a couple of the groups that I already have a 100-day plan. And that plan entails lots of listen and learning. So you're learning about the culture, you're learning about the institution, you're developing key themes that come out of that. And frankly, I think sometimes the outsider might have a better opportunity at affecting more transformational change because they don't have the history behind that. And though this is going to sound like a negative connotation, I don't mean it to be that way, but the baggage that comes with that. So again, I think it's all about fit, right? So you all and the chancellor hopefully will, and I'm sure they will, make a decision based on fit as opposed to where that person might be from geographically. Could this person fit? Are they able to, will they be able to move the needle in the right direction and get us to the place that we want to be 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road? And if the answer to that is it's someone that has been in the state, then that's great. But I don't think that it makes it disqualifying for those that aren't. I think, again, there's nothing. Tennessee, frankly, has a lot more going for it than a lot of other states. So I think you're likely to see more presidential pools with those from out of state. Who wouldn't want to work in a state that already has what I would call a multi-directional promise plan? A promise plan for the students that are coming from high school and an ability for adults to reconnect. Like that's half the equation right there. So part of what led me to, after talking with the two that I know in the state, oh, hey, this could actually be a pretty good opportunity. So yeah, really, I think it culturally, you have a lot of learning to do anyway. Would I have more to do? Certainly, that there's no getting around that, but I don't think that's a detriment either.
Any online questions? Okay. Other questions from the audience? There's one in the back.
Hey there. So we talked a lot about things this morning regarding students and that we're going to see a decline in that. One of the things that I'm interested in and that we see is how do we recruit and retain quality faculty members? For example, I've posted a welding position 3 times with this many folks replying to it. So what ideas do you have or what experience do you have in recruiting and retaining faculty?
Again, goes back to the question I just answered. We're all fighting this battle. So I would tell you this is going to take an approach to hiring that maybe we haven't thought of and maybe we don't even know the answer to yet completely. What has worked in the not so distant past for us, and I'm not afraid to figure out how to do things differently, but it's going to these places, and Intel is a good one, that are paying well over 6 figures for a tech that could be teaching in my program and saying, you know what, if you need me to give you employees, I need your talent to teach for me. And I know they can't do that full time, but give me them for a couple of classes a semester, spread that out. Let's leverage some of your expertise, because on the back end, you're going to be rewarded for that in the way of having highly trained graduates come from this program. So let's not fight and swim upstream and try and hire full-time only in places that we know it is impossible for us to compete on that scale. And let's go back to our workforce and say, give me some talent that I can use. We will get them up to speed on how to teach. Because that also is, I think a lot of times we hire folks from industry and we just assume they know how to teach. That's usually not the case, but we can help them from a pedagogical standpoint get up to speed from that. Where we are lacking is our ability to offer even close to the amount of money that they might be making. And I think it's very, the wishful thinking or benevolence of, oh, well, they want to do it because they want to give back. Yeah, that's true. But if you can't pay the bills, because you're used to 6 figures and you're going to be making half of that, that's a tough sell. And that's not even really a question that they're going to entertain. So let's have conversations around how we can use and leverage, especially in the high demand areas where we know us competing against the private market won't work out. Let's have different conversations around that. And I'm not saying for an instant, so please hear me, I'm not saying for an instant that we need to be adjunct only. Like, that's not at all where I'm going. I think in areas where we are having problems competing, it's going to take outside the box answers. I'll give you a great example of the inverse of that. We have hired dynamos in our nursing program for the last 2 years. The applicant pools haven't been huge, but those that we've gotten have been phenomenal. Why? It's likely due to burnout. They're burned out of being at the bedside. They're burned out from working 60 hours a week. Hey, I can take care of that. I'm not going to work you 60 hours a week. I'm going to give you a great benefits package. I'm going to give you the ability to change students' lives for the better. I can work with that where money isn't the issue. But if money is the key issue, then let's figure out some different ways to address that. And I think the main one, like I said, that we've done that has worked thus far is to reach out to employers and say, meet me halfway. Let me get to a place where we're using your folks to teach some of these really highly intensive skilled classes, and let's get a double win for each other.
Thank you. Other audience questions? The one up front.
As an individual who's just began his career in higher education, I'm curious how you think, higher education, specifically community colleges as a whole, will look like in 10, 15, 20 years. Do you truly see a positive outlook? And how do you see Northeast State fitting into that perspective?
So I will steal a line from one of my favorite movies from Ed Harris in Apollo 13. Everyone's thinking it's all doom and gloom for the flight. And he turns around and said, with all due respect, I think this is going to be our finest hour. Community colleges have an unbelievable opportunity in front of them. We have the best ability to meet students where they are. We just have to be willing to question the way that we've done things for the past 20, 30, 40 years. And we have to be willing to do things differently. So I don't know what the next 10 to 20 years holds. I will guarantee you, in my heart of hearts, community colleges are a part of it, and they're a strong part of it because we have the ability to be nimble. We have the ability to react in a way that a four-year institution would not with regard to time and space. But we have to get out of our own way sometimes. So being willing to question norms, value of why we continue to do something just because we've always done it, those are the types of things that are going to need to be interrogated. And I'm not saying that we need to change everything just for the sake of change, but if it's not working, let's have a conversation. And you're not hiring me, by the way, to be the answer person. Okay. I don't have all the answers. I have an incredibly dedicated faculty and staff who, if given the chance, will be a part of that conversation, but we're going to go through this together. So I think, and that's a good thing, right? I don't think, I wouldn't believe anyone that told me unequivocally, this is where community colleges, higher ed is going to be in the next 15 or 20 years. Are there going to be fewer community colleges in the next 15, 20 years? My answer to that would be yes. And I think that's just a sign of the times. And there are going to be community colleges that are resistant to change. And maybe the demographics have shifted so much that it's just not possible for them to continue on. But I do believe we are at a place where those colleges that are willing to take those strategic risks, all in the name of student support and student success, are going to be phenomenally successful. And their communities are going to look at them and say, man, we are so lucky to have a community college like that. And it is the gem of our community, and we are going to support it till the end of time. I do, again, I believe in my heart of hearts, and I'll be very candid with you. As COVID has done with most of us, I had kind of an internal reckoning with myself about, what do I want to do? What do I want to do with, I thought, I'm on this path and it's just the way that it goes. And this is the path that you're on, and you just stick to the path. But the last 2 years have really hopefully they've made everyone question, but me specifically had times where I was like, is this what I want to do? And every single time I came back to, what gets you out of bed in the morning? And the answer to that has always, and I hope will continue to be, our students, that I am making a positive impact for our students on a daily basis. And I think that's why we will continue to be relevant. We will continue to exist far into the future, but we're not going to look the way we do today. It's just not going to happen. My crystal ball's been broken for quite a while. So But that much I can tell you with about as much certainty as I can give you.
Thank you. Other audience questions? There's one here.
Can you talk about your philosophy and experience with remote work, especially flexible work options, considering the many different roles that faculty and staff play across campus?
Sure. So let me start this by saying we need to get real comfortable with honoring the commitment that our faculty and staff have given to all the institutions, we'll say Northeast specific, but we have not done an incredibly good job of honoring the work that's been done, celebrating that work, and giving folks space to kind of decompress. So I'll get to the remote work in a second, but I just want to say that's something I'm very deliberate about when I talk to my faculty and staff. We have to destigmatize the ability for someone to take a break, the ability to unplug. Those weekly updates that I talked about, the weekly emails that I send out, I tell people, get off your computer, and for all that it's worth, please get off social media. Like, these things are not good for you to be consumed in a 24/7 environment. So, and frankly, I think that starts at the top. So if I don't model a healthy work-life balance, that's very easy for me to tell you to do it. And then you're looking at me and say, well, that guy never takes a day off. So I can guarantee you one thing: if I'm your next president, you will see me take time off, because a burned out president is no good to you at all. And it's the same for the employees, the faculty and staff. You have to be able to, and we are a culture that, for whatever reason, and this is like totally an American thing, that have stigmatized taking a break, stepping back. I mean, overseas, they take a break for a month. What would that be like here? So, specifics to your question. As I've said, and I think it would be incredibly, the very definition of hypocrisy for me to tell you that we're going to need to do things differently, but when it comes to how and when we work, that's going to be the exact same. There are situations where remote work makes a lot of sense. I talked to a couple of the groups today that we do need to make sure we define to our employees what equity means. And equity doesn't mean equal. It just means that there is a chance for really conversations as to how this could look differently. It's not going to look the same for every position. But can we do remote work for even student-facing positions? Certainly, especially if our students are demanding the same of us, that they want to engage with us via Zoom as opposed to coming in face-to-face. So there are ways to do it. We're never going to get away from having face-to-face delivery for any number of reasons, but that doesn't mean that things have to be the same as they are. So a very long-winded answer to your question: I am absolutely in favor of doing what it takes to ensure that we have the most talented, well-respected, and unburned out workforce out there. And I think the way that you do that is you're willing to entertain things from that angle, as opposed to, this is the way that we've always done it, so this is what we're going to continue to do.
Thank you. Other questions from the audience? We have one up front. Got one here.
Hello, thank you for being here, and we hope you like East Tennessee. We love it. So one of the things that's really important to us is the engagement with students. So as a president, how do you envision your daily interactions or your consistent engagement with our student population outside of the classroom?
Sure. So I would take a couple of things that I do right now as a provost. I kind of like to do the undercover boss thing and go around not wearing a suit. That's the other thing. If you hire me, you will rarely see me in a tie. So I'm going to just tell you that right now. I'll wear the suit and do that when I need to. But COVID taught me one thing. It's that these useless things that we have around our neck, I'm not really sure what the purpose of is, but says the guy wearing the tie. So I do like that kind of undercover boss. I've found a lot of interesting. I've never gotten like a truly cringeworthy, like, holy cow, I can't believe that's happening. But I have learned certainly some very interesting things about our students. Another thing that I would carry over, I would just change the title. So I do pizza with the provost. So it'd be pizza with the president. The way to a student's heart is food, right? Our students love to be fed. And frankly, I think it's just a good way to, and I've talked a lot about this today as well, humanize the office of the president. So I have a title as a president, and a lot of times that keeps a good majority of the population from even engaging with me because they don't feel that they're allowed to, or that it's something that they can do because that's the president. The more humanizing that you can make, the more human you can make that office, the more likely it is you're going to get real feedback as opposed to the feedback that they think you want to hear. So I think those two things have been incredibly beneficial. I do love to just entertain students generally on different types of topics. So, during a pizza with the president, in this case, tell me what's on your mind. What are the things that keep you up at night? It keeps me grounded. It's much the reason that I still teach to this day. Is it's that reminder of why we do what we do. So I think there's certainly other ways, but I do think it's good, even if, like I said, from the undercover boss walking around in a collared shirt and jeans and just asking a question or pretending to be an adult student, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot, and they're willing to share it with you too.
Another question from the audience. We have one here. We'll try to get both of them in. These will be our last two questions. We have one here and then one in the back.
I read recently that some community colleges, in order to help their students, because students have a hard time with housing, they have a hard time with gas money, they have a hard time with transportation. And I read recently that some community colleges are creating residence halls for their students. Can you address that and what the possibility might be, or what the options might be for Northeast State?
Is the dean of students in here? She's probably watching online because they're going to freak out. But no, here's what I would say. Housing, residential housing is a part of addressing. I don't know from a community college standpoint if that is the best way or the most efficient way for us to provide the resource for our housing insecure students. What I mean by that is it is incredibly expensive to operate residential dorms. And they also come with a whole host of other problems. But because it's so expensive, that expense gets passed on to our students. Now, it may not be right away, but especially if we have to charge for that because we have to pass that cost on. Maybe their Pell gets reduced because they're paying more to be a residential student. I would be much more likely to look at, and some of the things that we've done in Ohio are engage with some of the social service providers. So like AmeriCorps, United Way, those types of agencies have incredible resource for students that are experiencing housing or food insecurity. We have taken care of, and as much as it's possible, the gas side of things. So we've been very, very deliberate in our messaging about if something popped up and there is a monetary expense that has jumped into your life and it's going to keep you from moving on, you need to come talk to us. You need to fill out that. We are here to help you. We're not just your educational provider. We're here to provide the service and support to make sure that we get you through successfully. So the gas card thing we do on that emergency grant basis, But I think we're probably more effective in talking with our funders and our social service providers because that is their lane. That's where they're very, very good, whether it's rent assistance, whether it's a different type of housing, that's their bailiwick. And again, some community colleges do have dorms. There's no denying that. But I do wonder about kind of the marginal cost versus the marginal benefit. Would we be risking too much and then potentially making education even more expensive by doing that, as opposed to working with those who are professionals in that area and saying, help us, because this is a huge problem. The number of students who don't have that are couch surfing, the number of students that are going to bed hungry at night. It's a huge problem. And it's frankly, it's a larger population that we'd probably like to admit. But I think we could probably do better by teaming up as opposed to trying to do it all on our own.
Thank you. We have one final question. I hope it will be brief with a brief answer, but we'll see.
She doesn't know me. There's nothing brief about me.
Oh, no.
You were talking earlier about going and telling our story. And while I am kind of new to Northeast State, I've only been here a couple of years. Matt down here in recruiting and Stephanie, they know I like to tell a story because I have a story of how this place means things to me. And I love going to the high schools and sharing that story specifically. Are you willing to look at and champion any programs that we may have and incentives that we may have, or coming up with new programs and incentives for faculty to better participate in going to these high schools and other venues and actively recruiting? And how much effort would you be willing to put forward to expand programs that we currently have to bridge high school students to Northeast State?
Yes. And as much as it takes. I'll be a little less facetious on that last part, but I know we're running out of time. So the last part, the resource, that's my job. As the president, I have to provide resource. That's how I look at, that's the very definition of what I strive to be, a servant leader. Servant leaders provide resource and then they let their people do their thing, because that's why you hire good people. So it's my job to go find the resource so that you can do the things that you just talked about. Would I support that? And would I want those people championing the causes to high schools and other? Absolutely. It doesn't need to just be me. It absolutely can be faculty and staff.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of our presidential Q&A. I want to thank you for participating. Thank you to those who watched online. And thank you for taking an active role in choosing the next Northeast State Community College president. You're invited to participate in a survey about each finalist as a means to give feedback. The link to this survey will soon be available on the webpage where you accessed the live stream. You can also go to HTT, the background there, northeaststate.edu/presidential-search to access the link that will take you to the survey. But that will be up and available to you. Again, thank you for participating. Dr. Heiser, thank you for your interest. Thank you for being here. Everyone be well.